How's it, Jordan here? This is the fourth episode of my Tanks 2023 course where in this episode, I'm going to be making some assets for the game. This episode is mostly going to be making the border wall and also a different type of wall, which is going to be a smaller wall that's going to separate some of the buildings, so enemy tanks and the player have to swerve around them. Right, here we have our tank. So if we press play, and we have our quite pretty terrain that I made in the last episode. We can drive around and it all works nicely. And yeah, it's quite nice. Also, all the grass, as you may notice, is quite cool. It all faces us. It's called billboard grass. And essentially, instead of having actual mesh, which will cause way more lag, it's just flat planes with a texture on it that always face you no matter what you do. So let's exit the game, and in this we're actually going to be adding the walls now. So I think the first kind of wall we're going to do is going to be the border wall, which is going to keep the player in, or at least attempt to. So also, by the way, the border wall will have a collider. This will stop the tank just driving right through it. Except I made the collider the same height as the wall, which is what it should be. Although, some games, what they'll do, or most games even, they'll make the border wall as like 100 or like a kilometer high even, just to make sure no matter what the player does, they can never exit it. Although I find it quite funny and a fun little, almost like an unintentional mini game to try and escape the border wall. So I'll keep it in. But if you don't want that, then you can definitely just make the collider very, very tall. So let's model the wall quickly. I'm going to open Blender now. And here we have our tank. I'm going to name this collection tank and disable it, exclude it. Then I'm going to make a new collection. This is going to be called walls, so just so I can easily separate everything. And to do this, I'm going to go add image and choose images as planes. If it doesn't exist for you, then go to settings. Here's the screencast keys, by the way. There we go. Go Blender preferences and we can just search. And by the way, there's built-in, so you don't need to install anything. Import images as planes, and it's built in. Right, we can close it and close Blender preferences. Go add images as planes. Here, as you see here, we have all the different pictures, which I photoshopped here. So I just photoshopped them to make flatten them, make it easier for use, of course. I also have my border wall here, so we can just open it and go RX 90. And what I'd recommend here, by the way, if you're making a proper game and you're going to like release it for money and all sorts, then what you do is you just make it so that you have multiple textures border wall, and you'll choose it between the different textures randomly if you wanted. And that would essentially mean that it never looks like just repeating, which it does in my game. So I'll just do repeating, but if you want, you can have different textures and merge them together. Right, I'm then going to go on our border wall, go Command R on the texture, on the image, I'm in edit mode by the way, in case you didn't know. And we're going to go faces and delete this part of the wall. We're going to delete that. We're first going to go Shift S and choose cursor to selected, then delete it, and I'm going to add a cylinder, only 15 as I usually do, which is relatively low poly, but still high poly enough that you won't really notice. I'm going to scale it down, stretch it out, and if we just select the vertices, let's go Alt Z, SX0, select this part, editing, and we can go U and cylinder projection. Whoops. So cylinder projection. It's actually Command Z. I think it was projected fine actually if I look at it now. We can go L, go S, Y, and try and get it correctly textured on here. Go S here. Just make sure it's mapped properly. And now if we check it, yeah, it looks fine. Also, I'm going to go faces and delete all the side faces because we will never need those and we'll never really see them. So they don't really need to exist. Right, now we have our border wall. Also, what I did in my video, in my actual game, is I added a little piece at the bottom. That if we go Alt Z in vertex mode, what I did is I moved it. I moved this vertex right here. I duplicated this part, and let's just zoom in. Let's try and get to it. Zoom in. Whoops. Try and fix that. Now we can duplicate it a bit. Select this part. Move it over here. And select these two vertices. These two vertices, go merge vertices at center. These vertices merge at center. And then we can even extrude these down a bit. There we go. Then I'm just going to show normals. The mesh is looking a bit odd. It's like passing through, and like out of reality, it looks a bit strange right now in Blender at least. So I'm going to check the normals, and you want to go. Let's just go over here and show. Let's go over viewport shading, turn off viewport shading, and backface culling. Right, I'm going to go F-in, F3, select everything, and go recalculate outside. And make sure it looks good so you can always see the mesh. This part is actually okay, but we can duplicate and go SY -1. So we're just making a copy on the other side though. So we can go F-in and flip that side. So now we can see both sides. Right, we can go viewport shading. We can then go shade auto smooth on the border wall. And we have done, I guess. Before I carry on though, this material, I'm going to make a new material. I'm going to name it concrete. Let's go image texture. And if we open, right here we have our textures, and we choose concrete. We could even just assign a bottom part to the concrete texture, and you reset. And there. Now we have our proper wall. We can then, we've done with that border wall. Now if we just, I'm going to unhide the tank. And we can just scale it up, and so appropriate size for everything. So border wall should be higher than a tank. So maybe this big. And just scratch just a bit. Perfect, and apply all transforms. Increase it to world origin. And there. We can hide our tank and hide. Then we can hide our border wall. I can make a second wall. It's going to be a bit smaller though. So I'm going to do the same kind of process, and I'll just import the right web textures, and it's this. Import images as planes. RX 90. There. Make a loop cut. and extrude this part out. Nice. Then on this part here, we can go U and reset it, I guess. Actually, let's go on the x-axis. U, project view from bounds, scale it down, go GX, down a lot more just so it fits there, and it looks properly 3D now. And we can even, right, let's select this part of the wall. Nice, U and reset. Scale it down and scale it down a bit more. There, U reset it again. I think I did something a bit wrong. Let's go U, project view from bounds now. I think that will fix it. It's X. And there. Now we have the proper wall. It's done. We can then select all these top pieces, fill it, and go U, and go on the Z, and U, project view from bounds. Move it right there. And then we can select all of this part, go P and part it. The reason why I'm going to do this is I'm going to move it right in the center. Then this part, the wall, I'm going to duplicate it, then 3, and flip it. So now we can see it on both sides, which is what I want. And now we have the second wall, which I guess we can just call, let's just call it wall, that's fine. Let's compare. Okay, the border wall is a bit, I think the smaller wall is a bit too big. Should still be a bit bigger than the actual tank itself though, just so the tanks can't properly go right over it, unless they really try. Alright, then go Shift and go GZ. Let's just move it down, Shift S, selection to cursor. Whoops, that didn't go exactly as planned. There. Now we have proper wall. We can disable the tanks, and now we can apply our transforms on both walls. This part of the wall can actually be extended down a bit. And we can just, let's save everything. Make sure to save quite often in case something goes wrong. And you need to select the border wall first. Go File, Exports, FBX. Go to our models. And let's export it as, and there. Selected objects and apply transform. And export FBX. We can then do the same to this wall. And name it wall. And the same settings. And export. Now if we check our Unity project, we can open both the walls here. And copy this texture, and copy the concrete texture. Then in our border wall, we can go border wall here, concrete here, and then our second wall we can drag this wall texture and there. Close them both, select all the textures, and go to materials. Then I can, oh, and also something's gone wrong with this texture. It doesn't really matter, but I'll just fix it here and apply. And now the bark of the track isn't by default bright pink. Right, now we're going to add in our border wall. So we can add it in, and we can rotate it 90 degrees on its axis. We can then go prefabs and select our border wall, go prefab, unpack completely. We can then add a box collider. Yes, it's correct scale. If you want, by the way, there's a time when you can make it as like very tall. The box glider, you can just move this up. I said I wouldn't do it, so I'm not going to. I'm going to add the border wall in. And we can then, as you see now, the border wall is a proper prefab. I just select the border wall and duplicate it again and again and again until we've essentially all I'm going to do is this. And I'm going to kind of follow the terrain as well. I'm just going to carry on this in the form of time lapse until I went all around the entire map. And I'll do that quickly. Okay, I have added all of the walls. So as you see, it's looking way nicer now. If we just try our tank, let's test it out. Whoops, I'm in full screen in the scene view. And it's looking quite nice already. We can drive around. Maybe I should increase the speed actually. But we can try drive around. Whoops, some things break. Let's try and fix that actually. The first problem is the tank's a bit small actually. No, not a bit small, a bit slow, sorry. Let's try a bit faster movement speed. And it's way better. Now let's figure out what on earth is happening here. So also, the turret, I noticed, if we go barrel, that needs a collider. We can check how big the collider is. A bit too big, yes. Let's go 0.1. Just scale it all down. Let's make it all that size. And let's try and slowly but surely scale it. Let's try and fix it all. And also, don't move the collider right over the end of the barrel, because that's where the bullet will go, and if the bullet hits the collider, it will get destroyed. Let's attempt to fix this. Try and find the bottom part of it. There, the bottom of the collider. Let's try and find it. And there. Let's try and move it again. There we go. Next, we can scale this part down. Whoops. There we go. And then finally, it's a bit too long. It's like going inside the tank, which will probably destroy the entire thing. So let's try and move the collider. Just a bit like this, and the bottom part down. Nice. If we now press play and we drive around, now it will kind of stop us, but yeah, some things are definitely broken now. Now it's some weird kind of tank which doesn't seem to need tracks anymore. So let's fix that. Right, after some testing, I finally figured out the problem. So what I ended up doing is adding a rigid body to the wall prefab, which essentially, the reason why I added a prefab, I could add it to every single one of the walls, which if I check, there's like 60 of them, which is a lot. And it turns out it was adding it to cinematic. And I actually solved the problem, and it did it quite nicely also. So if we drive now, as you see, it stops the tank now properly. It's still a tiny bit buggy, but I don't think that can really be fixed, sadly. But yeah, it works. It's a bit better now than previously. Right, so this is the end of this episode. In the next episode, we'll start modeling the first buildings, which will be quite an exciting part of the game. So, I'll see you then. Bye!